So, have you ever had that feeling where um, someone is doing something incredibly nice for you, but your stomach is just tied in knots?
Oh, absolutely. It's that really uncomfortable gut reaction.
Right. Like they might be showering you with affection, giving you all these thoughtful gifts, or telling you that, you are their whole world.
On paper, it looks like a complete fairy tale.
Exactly. But instead of feeling warm and fuzzy, it just feels heavy. I mean, it feels like you're suffocating.
Yeah, suffocating is the perfect word for it.
And if you dare to step back or uh, try to establish a boundary, they just look at you devastated and say, but I'm only doing this because I love you so much.
Which is such a manipulative trap, right? It's this very specific, deeply unsettling kind of psychological claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia. Wow.
Yeah, because the affection feels less like a warm blanket and more like, well, a straitjacket.
A straitjacket.
Right. We see this dynamic constantly, yet we always struggle to articulate why it feels so wrong when the actions themselves, the gifts and the sweet words, are universally categorized as good things.
Claustrophobia disguised as devotion. That's just the perfect way to frame what we are getting into today.
You really.
Because today, our mission for this deep dive is to basically take a sledgehammer to almost every romantic illusion that pop culture feeds us.
And we really are tearing them down.
We are. We're exploring a text from 2009 by an author named Shufeng. It was translated by Kinyu, and it's titled, Do Not Use Love as a Justification for Spiritual and Soul Control.
It is such a heavy, fascinating title.
It really is, and it forces this very uncomfortable examination of the incredibly fine line between genuine affection and, well, emotional manipulation.
Yeah, and I mean, the author pulls absolutely no punches here. The text demands that we look critically at behaviors society usually celebrates as like peak romance, and it asks us to examine the underlying motives. It's this fascinating philosophical deconstruction of human connection.
And the core premise is pretty radical, isn't it?
Oh, completely. The core premise is that a massive percentage of what we call love is actually just a really sophisticated, socially acceptable mechanism for controlling another human being's spirit.
Which is just mind-blowing to think about.
Mm.
And to even begin that deconstruction, the text has to establish a baseline, right? Like it has to define what love actually is.
Exactly. You have to know what the real thing is to spot the fake.
Right. And Sofing does this by creating this stark contrast between two concepts, great love and small love. And the imagery used for great love is just incredibly grounded.
Yeah, it is. The foundational metaphor here is the mountain.
The mountain, yeah.
The text describes great love as being silent and steadfast. It actually draws a comparison to the greatest creator's love for humanity,
Wow.
pointing out that this kind of profound, unwavering love doesn't even require human language.
I love that. It doesn't announce itself.
Right, it doesn't need to.
Yeah.
It simply exists as a foundational element of reality, immovable and secure.
I find that image so comforting. I mean, it makes me think of gravity.
Gravity. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, because, gravity doesn't need to text you every morning to remind you it's holding you to the earth.
That's very true.
It doesn't demand a thank you for keeping you grounded. It just operates totally unconditionally.
Exactly. It's just there.
Which brings us to the opposite end of the spectrum.
Oh.
So if great love is this silent, immovable mountain, then small love is entirely conditional.
Conditional and inherently unstable.
Unstable, right.
The text argues that the moment love comes with strings attached, the moment it requires constant verbal validation or demands reciprocation, it shrinks.
It becomes small love.
Right. And the author uses the metaphor of passing clouds to describe this small love. It drifts by, it changes form constantly, shifting with the seasons and, the prevailing winds of circumstance.
And the text gets almost visceral in its description of the life cycle of this small love.
It does. It gets pretty dark.
Yeah. It talks about a love that starts with this intense, fiery passion, but inevitably decays into stench and rot.
Stench and rot. It's brutal.
That's a brutal phrasing. But the reasoning is that this small love isn't born of a genuine spiritual connection, right? It's born of selfish desire.
And the mechanics of that decay are really crucial to understand here.
Break that down for me.
Well, selfish desire is consumptive. It's hungry.
Like it needs to feed on something.
Exactly. When you base a relationship purely on what you can extract from the other person, whether you're extracting physical intimacy, emotional security, or just like validation of your own ego, the foundation is constantly degrading.
Wow. because you're taking, not giving.
Right. And when the other person stops providing the resource you desire, the affection sours into resentment. And that resentment is the rot Shui-Feng is talking about.
Okay, so it's like a subscription service model for human connection.
A subscription service.
Yeah, like the minute you stop paying the monthly fee, whether that fee is returning their affection, validating their feelings, or just giving them your undivided attention, your access to their love gets cut off.
That is a brilliant analogy, and viewing it as a subscription model really highlights how fundamentally transactional our standard view of relationships actually is.
We really do treat it like an economy, don't we?
We do. We think, I provide this level of care, so you owe me that level of devotion.
Right.
But the text is making the radical claim that a love built on conditions and ledgers ceases to be love at all. It devolves into a mechanism for binding the other person.
Okay, so if small love is essentially an economic transaction, then there has to be a contract holding it together.
Naturally.
And looking at a text, Shui-Feng argues that we sign that contract using the exact phrases society tells us are the most romantic.
This is where it gets really uncomfortable. The weaponization of romance.
Right. The weaponization of romance.
Yeah.
The text is exceptionally critical of these grandiose romantic vows.
Oh, completely. It explicitly calls out phrases that we have totally normalized as the pinnacle of devotion, and it reframes them as insidious mechanisms of manipulation.
I honestly have to read the specific phrases the text targets because it feels like a direct attack on, like, every pop love song ever written.
Oh, it really does.
Tell me how many times you've heard these in movies. I will love you forever. Without you, I can't live. I'm willing to die for you. You are my everything.
I mean, they're the foundational cliches of the romantic comedy genre.
They really are.
Right.
But the text doesn't see them as romantic at all. It calls them the most selfish, ruthless kind of cunning manipulations disguised as love.
It's a harsh reality check.
It is. So let's unpack the functional reality here. Because I can hear someone listening right now thinking, wait, telling someone they are my everything is the ultimate compliment? How on earth is that a ruthless manipulation?
Well, we have to look past the poetry of it and examine the actual psychological weight of those words on the recipient.
Right, the burden of it.
Exactly. When someone looks at you and says, "Without your love, life is meaningless to me, I would rather die," what are they functionally doing?
Guilt-tripping you.
Yeah. They are placing the entire responsibility for their continued existence, their psychological stability, and their happiness squarely on your shoulders.
Wow. It manufactures an immense amount of guilt.
Massive guilt.
Because if you are their everything, then if you ever decide to leave, or like even just need some space, you aren't just taking a break. You are actively destroying them.
And that manufactured guilt is the invisible pressure the text warns us about.
Invisible pressure.
Right. Making the other person feel indebted in the name of love is the very definition of spiritual and emotional control.
Because you lose your choice.
Exactly. You are no longer staying in the relationship because you are free and joyful. You're staying because you feel you can't leave without being a monster.
Oh, wow.
So those vows aren't promises. They are emotional hostages.
Emotional hostages. That is terrifying. Yeah. And it isn't just the dramatic vows either.
No, it's the subtle things, too.
Right. The text points out that even everyday nice behaviors are used this way. Showering a partner with gifts, offering meticulous care, speaking constantly with sweet words.
Yep.
The author suggests the ultimate goal of these grand gestures isn't actually to give freely, but to create a ledger of debts.
And the ledger is how the controller secures their investment.
Secure their investment. Gross, but accurate.
It is. Because by creating highly favorable conditions, the constant gifts, the overwhelming care, the controller ensures that you feel a deep sense of obligation.
You literally owe them.
Exactly. You owe them your compliance, your time, and eventually your autonomy. It is a brilliant, subtle way to rob someone of their freedom.
The trap is lined with velvet, but it is still a trap.
It's still a trap.
That completely reframes that stomach in knots feeling we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
Your intuition knows you are being handed an invoice, not a gift.
Your gut always knows.
But so what happens when the person being controlled senses the trap and tries to pull away? Because the text dives into some very dark territory regarding the tactics that emerge when the sweetness fails to secure compliance.
Yeah, when the velvet trap fails, the emotional extortion becomes very overt.
Overt extortion.
Right. The text outlines that a controller, when they're dissatisfied with a partner's boundaries or actions, will escalate immediately.
What do?
They will pretend to be deeply hurt, become deliberately despondent, or start crying uncontrollably.
The text even mentions extreme behaviors like threatening self-harm. which is terrifying, but it perfectly illustrates the mechanism of control. The victimhood itself becomes a weapon.
It weaponizes the victim's own empathy against them.
Oh, man.
Think about it. If you establish a healthy boundary and your partner responds by threatening to hurt themselves, your natural human decency forces you to drop the boundary to protect them.
Because you care. You don't want them to suffer.
Exactly. The controller uses your goodness to build the bars of your own cage. It forces the other person back into compliance through sheer terror and guilt.
It's emotional blackmail, plain and simple. And this ties into another fallacy the text heavily condemns, which is the sheer arrogance of reckless promises.
Oh, the promises of lifelong happiness.
Yes. The text lists declarations like, I will ensure your happiness for a lifetime, or I will take full responsibility for you. And the author basically asks, who do you think you are?
And the philosophical grounding here is incredibly sound. I mean, as human beings, we are finite, fragile creatures.
Right, we don't even know what we're having for dinner tomorrow.
Exactly. We cannot predict what will happen tomorrow afternoon, let alone for the rest of a human lifespan.
It's impossible.
Therefore, promising to guarantee someone else's lifelong happiness or shoulder all their spiritual responsibilities is not just an empty lie, it is an irresponsible assertion of a power you do not possess.
And attempting to wield that non-existent power leads to, honestly, the most striking metaphor in the entire piece.
The golden cage.
Yes. The text illustrates true love as letting birds fly freely and letting flowers bloom naturally in their own environment. But control is building a golden cage for the bird.
Or transplanting a wildflower from the earth into your bedroom just so you can tend to it.
Oh, the physics of that metaphor just reveal the tragedy of the controller's mindset.
Oh, so?
Well, when you uproot a wildflower and place it in a pot in your bedroom, you might water it meticulously, you might ensure the temperature is perfect.
Right.
From your perspective, you are being the ultimate loving caregiver.
But you've severed its roots.
Yes. You've cut it off from the ecosystem that actually gave it life. The unpredictable wind, the natural soil, the actual sun. The flower might survive for a while in your bedroom, but it is existing in a state of suspended animation. It isn't truly living. It's just being preserved for your viewing pleasure.
That is so dark.
Yeah.
But it illustrates the profound spiritual and emotional torment inflicted by control masquerading as love.
It really does.
It highlights the inherent danger of the savior complex. The text explicitly warns against this, stating that no matter how extraordinary we believe ourselves to be, even if we view ourselves as a savior to our partner, we must never impose spiritual control.
Wow.
Because the moment you believe you are someone's savior, you inherently believe you know what is best for them better than they do.
And that arrogance gives you the internal justification to build the golden cage.
Precisely.
Because you've convinced yourself the cage is a sanctuary, but you're just hoarding a human being.
Which is tragic for both people.
It really is. So the inevitable question becomes, how are we supposed to interact?
Right. What's the alternative?
Exactly. If standard vows are manipulation, if gifts are often ledgers of debt, and if caretaking can easily become a golden cage, how does the text suggest we actually engage in relationships without becoming what it calls a demon of control?
Well, the alternative presented by the text is rooted in absolute, uncompromised freedom.
Okay, freedom.
It dictates that true love must be entirely voluntary. It requires zero enticements, zero promises, zero guarantees, and zero obligations.
Okay, wait, let's pause on zero obligations.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a massive conceptual hurdle for most people.
Oh, it goes against everything we're taught.
Seriously. We are raised on traditional relationship milestones that are entirely defined by establishing mutual obligations.
Right. Marriage, mortgages, kids.
Exactly. But the text uses these beautiful elemental metaphors to explain how connection should function without those obligations. It compares true love to the spontaneous collision of clouds charged with opposite energies.
And it also evokes the natural merging of two rivers, or the seamless blending of milk and water.
The milk and water metaphor really clarifies the physics of this freedom for me.
Tell me more about that.
Well, when you pour milk into a glass of water, you don't have to force it, right?
Right.
You don't have to draft a contract to ensure the milk stays with the water. The two substances just naturally diffuse. They share the exact same space, they intermingle completely, but neither one forces the other to change its fundamental molecular structure to fit into a confined shape. It's just effortless.
That lack of resistance and boundary enforcement is the key. The text stresses that a connection relying on external pressures, whether that is money, status, power, beauty, or youth, is just selfish scheming.
How's it scheming?
It is not true love because it is conditional. True love fully respects the other's freedom to exist in their natural state.
There's an interesting bit of context in the text that highlights this idea of shedding manipulation.
Oh, about the Chanyuan celestials.
Yes, the author directly addresses a specific group, saying, therefore, Chanyuan celestials must stop using cunning schemes to exert spiritual and emotional control over others, especially the opposite sex.
Right. That passage reveals that this text was actually originally formulated as a guiding philosophy for a specific community, the Chanyuan celestials.
Okay, so it was a direct message to them.
Exactly. The author is urging this group to drastically elevate their interpersonal dynamics. But, the universal application is undeniable.
Oh, for sure.
The core actionable instruction is to abandon the cunning schemes we use to secure affection. The philosophy is to adapt to circumstances, flow with destiny, and act in harmony with our nature across all aspects of life, work, and love.
I have to admit, letting go of the need to possess someone entirely is a really tough concept to internalize.
It goes against all our conditioning.
It does. We are deeply conditioned to view holding on tightly as the ultimate sign of caring. So, is the ultimate goal here to reach a state where you simply don't need to possess your partner at all?
That is the functional goal.
Wow.
The text defines true love as a harmonious dance of two hearts in sync.
A dance.
Right. And a dance requires two distinct individuals moving freely in a shared rhythm. If you grab your partner, restrain their arms, and lock them in a room so they can never dance with anyone else, the dance is over.
The dance is over.
The moment you attempt to perpetually possess love through scheming or guilt, it ceases to be love. The author goes as far as to say that attempting to possess love is the behavior of a demon and a desecration of the love itself.
A desecration. That is a heavy word. Because you've taken the silent, unconditional mountain and turned it into a petty transaction.
Exactly.
You've taken the seamless, effortless blending of milk and water and turned it into a hostage situation.
That's exactly what it is.
And to help us relinquish that desperate need to possess, the text offers a deeply reassuring reality check about impermanence.
We really need that reassurance.
We do. It reminds us that the world is going to keep turning regardless of our relationship status. Flowers will continue to bloom whether a specific person stays in your life or leaves.
The author writes, when one door closes, 9 others open. No one is indispensable.
No one is indispensable.
It's a radical, almost aggressive acceptance of impermanence. We cling so tightly and build these cages because we are terrified we will not survive without the other person's validation or presence.
The fear of being alone.
Right. But the text asserts that life often becomes far more joyful and free after a separation. By removing the terror of loss, you remove the psychological need to control.
Wow. We have covered a tremendous amount of philosophical and psychological ground today.
We really have.
Let's distill this down to its core message. According to Suifeng's text, true love operates like a mountain. It is silent, steadfast, and entirely free of conditions or demands. The moment a person leverages grand vows, lavish gifts, or plays the victim to manufacture guilt or indebtedness, they have abandoned love. They're engaging in spiritual and emotional control, wearing the mask of devotion.
It forces us to strip away the romanticized Hollywood narratives and look clinically at the functional reality of our actions.
We have to be honest with ourselves.
Exactly. We have to ask ourselves, are we actually respecting the autonomy and freedom of the people we claim to care about? Or are we simply extracting their compliance through a network of invisible pressures?
So, as you go about your week, we want to ask you to turn the lens inward. It's incredibly easy to spot when someone else is trying to control us, but it is far more uncomfortable to evaluate our own motives.
It's the hardest thing to do.
Are you building beautiful golden cages for the people you love? Are you transplanting wildflowers into your bedroom and telling yourself you're just being a good caretaker? Or are you truly letting the birds fly and the flowers bloom naturally in their own time and space?
It requires a level of rigorous honesty with oneself that is quite rare, but entirely necessary if you want a connection that doesn't eventually rot.
It really does. And we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over something that takes the strict rules established in the source material to their absolute logical conclusion.
Oh, this is a good one.
If the text is right and true, pure love strictly requires absolutely zero promises, zero guarantees, and zero obligations. Does that mean the very concept of traditional marriage vows, promising to stay together forever, forsaking all others till death do us part, is inherently a form of emotional control?
It certainly raises a profound question about the rigid institutions we've built to domesticate human connection.
It really makes you wonder about the actual source of that heavy feeling in your stomach. The next time someone tells you they are doing something just because they love you so much, ask yourself, are you standing next to a silent mountain? Or are you just admiring the bars of a beautifully decorated cage?
No.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning everything.